this is an EP that follows from Radiant Visage, which we released a couple of months ago. And this is the live performance EP. So they're all DAWless, if I'm not much.
Yes. Yeah, they're all DAWless. They were created DAWless, sampling into the SP404 and using the circuit tracks. The live set that I did of Radiant Visage songs is also included on it, but these songs are completely separate. It was the start. When I started making the album, I wanted to do an all DAWless thing, and these are kind of like the remnants and fleshed out remnants of that original concept.
Cool. Well, there we go. The reminiscent remnants, you might say.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So let's take a look. Do you want to introduce the first track for us?
Yeah, so this one, it's actually the most recent edition. It's called No Better Time, and this was all SP.
All SP.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to switch over, so it'll take a second before it plays. This is still kind of a new thing we're doing, so give us a sec.
In the meantime, didn't know Sunwarper and Eon Lake both have an SP404 Mark II. I don't know if they've made that clear, but, but they do use it and they do like it. Fantastic little introduction to everything we got there. That popped up on my release radar over the weekend, and I was listening to it. Yeah, I was listening to it while making pancakes for me and Chris, and it was bloody lush.
That's the way to make pancakes, with some like lo-fi.
Yeah, it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Yeah, this is kind of the first, kind of, as you say, this is kind of the first like branch into like your DAWless work and stuff like that. Like, when I remember how excited you were when you picked up the SP404 and just turning up on Monday for our meet. It's like, oh! And then
because it took like 4 months to get here.
Yeah, it was a long time coming.
Yeah, I completely get it. My question becomes, okay, so you're sitting there, and now obviously you've got a proficient kind of schedule with your own YouTube channel where you do this on a weekly basis. How long did it take you to go from getting it out the box to getting competent enough and confident enough for you to start playing around and start jamming and start filming and doing your stuff?
Well, I started the DAWless stuff with the circuit, I think 4 months before I got the SP. Or no, it must have been longer, because it took 3 or 4 months when I ordered the SP, and I had the circuit for a good long while, maybe 4 months before I ordered the SP. But I started doing stuff right out the bat. I didn't want to wait or anything. I think the best way to learn is by doing, and there's no better pressure than just like knowing you're releasing it, you know? So I just went right ahead. You can look on my YouTube channel. I think the first one, it's been almost a year, I think, since I got the circuit. It was a year in October. So you can look at it back in October on my YouTube channel, the first one. That was like my first actual jam on the circuit.
Well, there you go. So
Yeah.
as in, you got out of the box and right off the bat, you're filming yourself doing a journey.
Well, I did one song without any equipment and stuff, and that was not good. So I guess to answer your question properly, one song was the journey. There's one song I'll never put. We'll just keep that one a secret. Just nobody tell anyone about that one, okay?
I think it's important to know these things. I think for any budding performer who wants to get into it, like the idea of just taking it out of the box and just kind of going straight, because we could sit and we could practice for months before actually feeling ready, because you never feel ready.
I should add though, I watched tutorials on both before I got them. So when I got it, I kind of had an understanding just by living vicariously through all these videos of like, oh, here's what these buttons are going to do. It's not the same, because as soon as it's in front of you, it's like, what? But you kind of, it's not muscle memory, but you kind of have that photo recall of like, oh yeah, I remember them hitting shift and doing this or that, you know. So if anyone's looking at getting into DAWless, I definitely recommend watching a lot of videos on the specific piece you're looking to get, or just any in general.
Sounds good.
I have a question.
Yeah, hit me.
So, as somebody who's about to take a load of songs and translate them into partly sample-based live versions, what was your approach for getting your stems and bits onto your samples? Were you sampling into it, or were you using the app to just take stems straight out of your door?
That's a good question. For all of these, most of the melodic stuff I recorded into it, either from the circuit, from hardware, something like that. Now I'm doing it a little bit differently, but for these it was like that. Or I just even play through the SP and use the SP as like a effects box or something. Yeah. But the drums I was moving from the computer on an app, on the SP app. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of doing. Just wondered how it stacked up, you know, resampling versus just drop it out the door onto the.
One thing I did do too, when like a sample was kind of complicated or it was a longer sample, like a full bar or 2 bars, is I would just move it into the computer and bounce that out so I could have the exact times so that the loop wouldn't be off. Because this was before the TR rec mode and stuff like that on the SP. So yeah,
that's easier now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Shall we move on to the second song?
Yeah, it took the words completely out of my mouth. So introduce this second one for us.
All right, so this one is the earliest track. This is called Relic, and it was DAWless Jam 6. So I think it came out in November or December of last year on YouTube. And I always really loved the track. It's just the circuit and the mini log. And I went ham on the mini log's delay with the feedback to get all these crazy noises and pitch wobbles and stuff like that.
It was absolutely fantastic. Seems to have been getting a lot of buzz in the chat. Hydrofire, totally cool track. Everyone seems to love it. Complex from Dave.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. This was one of the earlier DAWless jams I made with just the circuit sending MIDI to the Minilog and the Erebus, and that was like the first one that I was really stoked on in terms of after I finished it. I was like, oh, that's cool. And it got me way out of that whole... I was writing Future Fade at the time, so it was all ambient, but just that whole different setup got me thinking in these complex drum rhythms and things like that.
So now you come back... You're making the Future Fade, obviously your ambient side of things, and then you're doing this in the DAWless. Is there still kind of a separation of the two, or are you now fusing your DAW and your DAWless stuff?
I had intended next year to do an all DAWless thing, but my scope for the next project has gone far beyond, as I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised, gone far beyond what I would do with the DAWless setup. So I think I'm going to combine the two, make the songs in Logic, and then make DAWless versions to perform live, like stems and things like that. Like maybe, because it's going to be a year thing, so maybe halfway through do a performance of the first 6 or 8, and then at the end of the year do like another 6 or 8, something like that.
Makes sense. Completely. What are you thinking, Ian? Like,
I'm thinking I want to play my Minilog again after listening to that.
Yeah, that feedback is
I
nice.
do love it, yeah.
Yeah.
Really
and I
good.
think, don't quote me, I have to look, I think that was one of the presets it came with. I think it's that like SF synth or something. It's like preset 11 or 12. There's a really cool preset they have that I used on a lot of the DAWless jams. I love making my own presets, but that one just really clicked with that filter. Or with the delay.
There are 2 or 3 factory ones that I do use. I might tweak them slightly each time, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always the way. What's track number 3, Sunwarper?
It's Algorithmic Anxiety. This is with the Erebus.
What a name.
We were talking about ADSN stuff, and I was like, we're talking about social media, and I was like, I'm so sick of it. So yeah, that was a reaction to that. This was SP, Circuit, and Erebus. I recorded sounds from the Erebus into the SP, and then also sequenced the Erebus separately with the Circuit, and did all the drums on the Circuit. You can see the whole process of making the song over on my YouTube. I can put a link later. I forget what the name of that one is, but yeah, it is there.
There we go. Let's cut to it. Great. So that is 3 out of 4. We'll hit the 4th one as an outro for today's show. Absolutely lovely. Again, very Shady says it puts it perfectly. Definitely a darker tone with these tracks. Dig it, and yeah, absolutely fantastic. Very much the darker side of Sunwarper, which is
like I said in the chat when Hydrofighter mentioned that it's darker. I was listening to a lot of the Black Dog at the time, which is a really cool IDM band, I guess you'd say, but they do a lot of ambient and stuff like that, but they have such cool sound design. We've talked about them on Binary Stars before, and I think that's around the time that I made this track, and so, yeah, it was just like, I really love those darker tones, the weirder drums, you know, they kind of change around and stuff, and then I wanted to bring it at the end back with like a 4 on the floor, kind of make it a little more like a dark synthwave track or something.
I get that. So in terms of, so we've seen various aspects and various kind of evolutions of your live set. Kind of a two-parter question, right? So are you done in inverted commas with what you've got, and kind of you've got your toolkit now ready to kind of like master and take out into the world, or are you looking to add anything more to it?
I mean, I'd love to get like a Digitact or a Syntact or something, but as I mentioned, I'm not buying anything at the moment, so... No, I'm trying to master just, like, I even love the setup of just the SP and a Volca, and right now, what I've really been vibing on is Koala going into the SP. That is, like, replacing the circuit at the moment, actually. The circuit's been collecting dust back there. I still love the circuit, but the Koala into the SP is just awesome.
Well, there you go. And so, if I
what was part 2? Yeah.
Before Ian Lake gets in, if you are, again, for people who are looking to get into doorless jams and live production of electronic music, you have that selection of gear there. If you had to start with one, this is like choosing your Pokemon at the beginning, either your Bulbasaur, your Charizard, or your Squirtle. If you're choosing one, where are you starting off?
You know, as much as I'd love to say the SP or something like that, as much as I don't like the synth engine of the circuit, I think the circuit is an incredible start point and brain of an expanding DAW setup, because you get the 2 MIDI outs, you have the 2 synths built in, which, while I'm not the biggest fan of their sound, they're still there, and then you get those 4, they call them drums, but you could put any sample into it, so you could trigger, it's very, not archaic, but it's a very minimal or basic sample thing, but if you do all the chops and stuff in your computer and just move it in, it's pretty awesome. And then you can expand with MIDI and things like that. Also, I mean, I don't know, would you consider this DAW-less? But Koala is a really cool way to start.
I mean, it's not a DAW.
It's a sampler.
It's a sampler. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
I mean, that's just like a nice $5 start point, you know?
Yeah, that's a good toe dip. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, like, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, have you ever tried, because there was some extra Erebus in that, and thanks for that, but there's never too much of that thing in there. But have you thought about sampling that for making pads and things like that, maybe with a free running oscillator so that the different samples sort of peak?
Yeah, so the pads that I was playing on the SP, those like really warped, dusty pads, those were sampled from the Erebus, and I did 2 passes to get chords out of it, because you can play 2 notes, but I think those were like 4, so I did 1 and 2 and then combined them into its own pad. I was mentioning this when we were playing the song, but I mentioned it to Howard, but in terms of that song's setup, I recorded the bass notes and arpeggio and the pad into the SP from the Erebus, and then I also had another arpeggio being sequenced through the circuit into the Erebus. So there is a lot of Erebus on that track. But yeah, it's something I've been looking more and more into doing.
It's funny you mentioned the circuit as a choice for a place to start, because it does look like, apart from being able to give you sounds that are relatively flexible, a couple of MIDIs and so on, interfacing with other gear, it also looks like you get a fair bit of control, really. It's a good converged device in that sense, where you can control other things quite well with it.
Yeah, and you can there is like CV, you can send also CV, like programming or whatever, to synths. I haven't really done that because I just like to do it on the synth itself, but you can program that stuff to a degree. There is some limitation there. And then it's got a filter that you can do high pass or low pass, but it's a master filter. And then there's a reverb and a delay. So you don't have the suite of effects like the SP does, but it's a nice start point. You can always send pedals either in or out too. That's one way you could do it if you're putting synths through it or something like that. We're going to play the last track from Cracks in the Visage. It's a generative track. So it was originally a 2-minute song on the album, Radiant Visage. And then I used the circuit before and after playing the stems and during playing the stems on the SP as separate stems per track. And so it created this very strange, like 8 or 9 minute just ambient journey of generative soundscapes.
It'd be nice to see. So we're going to cut to that. But before we go, we'd like to say thank you very much for tuning in to this extended episode. So if you like that clip, consider checking out our full live stream Audionautic Deep Space Network on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, and you can also join us for the live stream of said podcast at 7 p.m. UTC, 11 a.m. Pacific.
Wonderful, yes. And finally, we have got the Audionautic Radio playlist, which is down in the description below. All the latest and the greatest of the underground electronica world that you see there. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, if you're looking for some new music or checking out some of the newest in electronic music, head to that link in the description, and we will see you in the next ADSN. Thanks for watching.